This is KTBC-TV, Channel 7, Austin. From Austin's News Channel, this is the Channel 7 News 6 o'clock report with David Swafford and Linda Schaefer, Mike Chalinas with weather, and Mark Covey on sports.
Well, coming up later, we'll tell you about a man who gave up his career to follow a dream.
And up next, bigger sometimes is better, but it can also be confusing, especially when it comes to the UT Library.
Bread.
Finding material in a library should be fairly easy by the time you get to college. That is, of course, unless you go to the University of Texas. Channel 7 Steve Rambo says the Austin campus sports the biggest academic library in the state. And that can mean headaches if you don't know how to use it.
Walk in here and right away you're struck by the size of this place. Look at this card catalog. Inside these files are the call numbers for almost 1.8 million books. This building has 6 floors of open stacks just like these. Place those stacks end to end and the line would stretch from Austin to San Antonio. This place, in a word, is awesome.
Yes, it does seem frightening, but it's not a system designed to thwart people. It is a system designed to help them locate what they want. And I think that, as I said, once they begin to know how to do it, some of that mystery and frightening aspect begins to fade away. And they feel
but to help the mystery fade quickly, tours are offered by library staff during the first couple of weeks of the new semester. Nothing big, just a walkthrough to acquaint students with the physical layout and services offered here. Gaines says many students who take the tour come from small towns and haven't had the opportunity to use a library even close to this size. But there is another reason.
Taking this tour is like protecting the investment these students are making in their education. After all, this place here is the best information resource on campus, but you have to know it to use it. Steve Rambo, Channel 7 News.
Hi. Action News with Sheila O'Connor, Ronald Evada, Hugh Lewis, and Dave Dixon.
Child was not hit.
We hear about censorship in books in public schools, but libraries across the country are saying censorship can be found everywhere. One of those libraries is at the University of Texas. Peter Jones reports.
The First Amendment says we can read what we choose, but that same Constitution leaves room for some controls, which states and localities can exercise freely depending on collective values or the whims of a few. Public libraries in Gardner, Kansas say famous shark novel Jaws is sexually explicit, so it's not on their shelves. Novel classic The Godfather, schools in Grinnell, Newburgh, Iowa banned it for its vulgar language. Many libraries nationwide are drawing attention to censorship this month. Their message?
This is a television program, and I can decide whether I want to watch it tonight or not. And I don't think that I should turn off everybody's television set. I don't think I should close everybody's book.
Now, just last year, Dade County, Florida wanted to ban Mother Goose rhymes from all public schools. Here's why. An excerpt from Jack and Jill. Jack sold his gold egg to a rogue of a Jew who cheated him out of the half of his due. It is a fine line when it comes to what children read, but Seeliger says it should not be a collective decision. In 1927, Brown University banned Lenin's State and Revolution. Students these days want the right to choose.
No, I don't. I think a person should be able to decide what they want to read, and the more ideas going around in the country, the better off we are.
Some things, maybe obscene material, it makes sense. But most literature, I think that people should have the right to read it and make their own judgments about it.
Censorship is still often based on the intolerance of a few. Alabama public schools still ban the Diary of Anne Frank. Officially, they call it a real downer. Peter Jones, 24 Action News.
Finally this evening, if you're thinking about running for president anytime soon, be warned. Your biggest opponent may not be a Republican or a Democrat, but a person with a pen. Peter Jones tells more.
The parades are fun. The party's great. You meet a lot of big shots. Still, who really wants to be president? They take such abuse. Eisenhower for his golf game. Even Kennedy for his haircut.
George Washington, they picked on him too, for having wooden teeth. The culprits, political cartoonists. And now the University of Texas is displaying a few examples of what these men with pen in hand can do.
So he was 6'4" in a 5'5" world. Is this any way to treat the great emancipator? Howard Taft was as fat as Lincoln was tall. It's tea time again for Ike, but leading the pack by more than a nose because of his nose, Mr. Nixon, King Caricature. Why?
And he got beat once or twice and was very bitter towards the press. And that probably made the cartoonists sort of mad at him. And then by the time Watergate came, they sort of saw him as a godfather type.
Our current president? Well, Holland says cartoonists are just plain running out of material. But this guy, another story entirely. That face, the voice, a cartoonist's dream. Their cry, onward to 88. Peter Jones, 24 Action News.
And we'll tell you how to win free tickets to see Sesame Street live at the Irwin Center. But first, a look at a unique collection of works that weren't always considered art. Too often dismissed, poster art is not only fine graphic art, but a good gauge of cultural trends. Last Friday, Austin's premier graphic artists, including Jim Franklin, Tony Bell, Michael Priest, Guy Juke, Danny Garrett, and Bill Narum, received some long overdue recognition when their work was officially dedicated at UT's Barker, Texas History Center.
Once again, let me express my appreciation to each and every one of the artists who created these works and who took the trouble to contribute and also to show up today. I know how difficult these things can be. I also particularly want to express my appreciation to the 5 bozos who drove up in the big white limousine to do this in style today. Thanks a lot.
John, why is this event important?
Well, first of all, it's important to the artists because they're getting some long overdue recognition. They've been working in this community, in the case of Jim Franklin and Tony Bell, since the late 1960s. And a lot of people have appreciated what they've done, but they've never really gotten the recognition, a formal recognition for the work that they've done, the way they've embellished the Austin community with their art. It's important for the Barker Texas History Center as well as a history research center because we consider these documents to be quite important elements of urban cultural history. They sort of help shape and define Austin during about a 15-year period. And that period is sort of coming to an end now. You see the real estate boom and the clubs closing and this poster art sort of dying out. So it's very important to preserve what characterized about a 15-year period in our history. And of course, you know, what is characteristic of Austin goes far beyond the Austin city limits. I know that's a phrase that means a lot to KLRU. But Austin projected far beyond its own limits, and this art really helped to do that. So.
By the way, you can get another look at the pop culture of the 60s when Woodstock airs here on KLRU Saturday, March 16th at 9 p.m. One of the men who was instrumental in shaping the 60s musical scene now lives right here in Austin. Arthur Brown is a classic rock vocalist who...
And finally tonight, the University of Texas is the new owner of $4 million worth of material showing what life was really like in the Old South from 1780 to 1900.
And as Kathleen Campbell explains, part of the collection has immense sesquicentennial value as well.
We know a lot about elites, but what was it like to live in Mississippi in 1845 and just be an ordinary common citizen? Well, that's one of the things that this collection is going to teach us.
What you're seeing is the University of Texas's newly acquired collection of historical material from the Old South. steamboat registers, slave bills of sale, photographs, and letters from Confederate soldiers, plantation owners, and more, all worth more than $4 million. 2 letters from Stephen F. Austin that before now were unknown are part of the collection, and they show that the father of Texas colonization was just like the rest of us, complete with human failings.
Austin is down and out. He's been sick. He says everyone around him has been sick, and he's looking for something to do. He doesn't know what he's going to do with his life. And he even asked this friend of his if he thinks that he should run hogs for a living and just live in Louisiana.
This collection of documents comes to UT after $900,000 and 2.5 years of negotiating were spent with an anonymous donor. The donor's father collected the papers from old plantations and slave cabins along the Mississippi River, sometimes only paying $1 to haul away the letters, books, and photographs, now worth more than $4 million. Kathleen Campbell, 24 Action News.
The Barker Texas History Center is cataloging the material, but you'll get to see some of the collection in a special exhibit at the center in late fall. That's the Action News Evening Report for this Monday.